Selyukh. I'm a reporter with Reuters. John Sims here is Global Head of Enterprise Solutions at Blackberry. John, you were the first hire by the Blackberry's new CEO, John Chen, when he took over. It was a bit of a dark hour for the company. He's trying to turn it around after several years of rapidly losing market share. What made you drawn to that challenge? I know that you've worked with John before, but what drew you to the challenge of this company as it's kind of struggling to redefine its brand or find its path forward?
There's probably a couple of things. First of all, as you said, I worked for John before, and he's an incredible personality. And the task to transform BlackBerry back to where it rightfully belongs in the industry is a significant challenge. But if anyone's up to that challenge, it's John Chen. And so to be part of his team, to be able to make that happen was a big draw for me. And it was exciting. And so I was happy to, he said, no pressure, you're just the first guy I'm bringing in. But it was an exciting opportunity, and it's been exciting for these last 9 months or so since I've been there.
What are the bigger challenges that you see the company facing right now, and what are sort of the next transformation steps we should expect from BlackBerry?
Well, so when you're transforming something like BlackBerry, it's a little like if you're walking down the stairs and you stumble, you kind of grab for the handrail to stabilize yourself. And for BlackBerry, we had to decide what that handrail was. And given the strength of the company in security and in the enterprise, we chose that as being the primary focus of how we were going to reorient and transform the company. So the biggest challenge was to make sure that we were projecting ourselves back as a strong player with a foundation on security and with solving mobility problems for enterprises, which is where the company really started. And so we did that. We created that focus. And so everything we're doing these days is creating solutions to be able to bring to our enterprise customers, mostly in regulated industries. Those are the industries that have a high desire for security as part of the overall mobility equation. And so we're using that as kind of the guiding light, if you like, to reorient the company and take it forward through this transformation.
As you push on these enterprise solutions into that enterprise apps market, there are some big guys trying to compete there. You've got IBM and Apple recently announcing a partnership of sorts. How is BlackBerry ready to combat that threat, respond to that threat?
So sometimes when I talk to people inside BlackBerry, I tell them it's a little like being a fighter pilot. You know, if you start focusing on the explosions that are going on around you, you're definitely going to get shot down. I've never been a fighter pilot, but the ones I've talked to tell you you've got to stay focused on your mission. And so that's a little like it is for us. We have to stay focused on our mission. We believe in the plan we have in front of us to transform the company. And for sure, there's going to be other things, and we expected other things to go on with significant players like the ones you mentioned. Now, having said that, I mean, we have the full respect for people like Apple and IBM. They're very significant companies. But if you've been around this mobile industry and if you've been around the technology industry for long enough, you will make note that this is the fourth time those companies have embarked on major joint ventures or partnerships. They're so far 0 for 3. So culturally, those companies are very different. One is a very consumer-focused company. The other is clearly has a heritage in enterprise. Can you blend those two together? If they can do it, good for them. But I think they have some challenges in being able to do that. And BlackBerry has solutions today that solve problems for our enterprise customers. Our customers don't have to wait for 18 months or 2 years to see what comes out of the hopper. They can do things today to help meet the challenges they have in the mobility space.
As you're trying to keep these big clients, you just mentioned the time frame of 18 months to a year or to 2 years. Do you still hear concerns of, will BlackBerry even be around in the next few years? How has that conversation changed since you took over? Are folks more willing to partner with BlackBerry, install BES, or are they still sort of asking you, where's the company going to be? Is it even going to be around in the next few years?
So I think I would tell you honestly, when I first came into the company, that was the first question customers asked me when I met with them. Are you guys going to be here? Can I depend on you? After they saw the things that we've done, and we've done a lot of repositioning, focus, and actions to secure the future of the company. And as we've done that, it's no longer the question the customers ask. They're now focused on what are the solutions you're bringing, how are you going to help me solve my problems, and how can we grow together going forward in the future. So the agenda in our customer meetings has really changed significantly, and customers have been making commitments to us to be able to stay with us for that longer term.
In the mobile device and enterprise mobility management worlds, there are also a lot of new competitors coming through. The space seems to be getting quite crowded. Can BlackBerry compete and overcome the crowdedness of the space and actually be profitable there?
Yeah, so BlackBerry has the largest enterprise mobility management base of not just any other vendor, but actually take the next three guys and add them together, and they still don't get to our market share. So we have a very substantial position in the market. MDM, or mobile device management, we view that as a commoditized space. So we don't actually see that as being key to our transformation of the company. What we see as being key to the transformation are the, let me call them value-added services that we provide beyond basic mobile device management. And these would be things that solve real problems for companies, and the security issues they have to deal with, the communications, the collaboration issues. How do they really embrace mobile to make their workers more productive, but do that in a way that keeps the data and the information of the enterprise secure throughout, and avoid their name being on the front page of one of the major newspapers with a security breach. And BlackBerry has that heritage in security, and we will continue to build on that as a differentiation relative to the other solutions.
A lot of this reformulation of sort of what BlackBerry is about seems to focus heavily on winning back the support of the core audience of the products you were mentioning earlier, financial services, government. Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say, now that there's been time to sort of analyze what went wrong in the past 5 years, is it fair to say that BlackBerry lost touch with its core audiences in the past, or sort of tried to be too many things to too many people? Is that the problem you're solving now?
I think it's pretty clear that BlackBerry went through a period where it expanded its focus, and not just focusing on its enterprise base, but also starting to look more heavily at that time into the consumer market. And so what we've tried to do is to, as I said, refocus on enterprise, focus on that core, make sure, because we look at our customers, and we have a massive install base of customers. But when we look inside those customers, they largely, historically, have used BlackBerry enterprise services to manage their BlackBerry devices. But they're adding lots of iOS devices, they're adding lots of Android devices, Windows Phone devices, and so on. So even within our install base, there is a very significant opportunity for us to use our technology and be able to manage all the devices they have, not just the BlackBerry devices. And so that's a heavy emphasis of what we're doing from a selling and marketing perspective with our enterprise customers. And then in addition to that, we're also upselling them into other services that go beyond. We were quite narrowly focused. We did mobile device management for BlackBerry devices. And one of the parts of our strategy has been to expand that, to be very firmly in the cross-platform space, and then move up into these other areas of mobility services.
So when we talk about the future of the BlackBerry device business, do you see a day when BlackBerry will be purely focused on enterprise and services?
So we asked a lot, are you going to stay in the device business or not? It's still firmly our intention to stay in the device business. We believe we can grow the device business. We believe we can make money in the device business. That hasn't been true at BlackBerry over the last few years. The company had lost money in devices, and that was a drag on the overall performance. But one of the things John Chen committed to when he came in was we will make money in the device business. So the relationship that we forged with Foxconn to be the supply chain for our devices allowed us to mitigate some of the risks associated with the profitability of that business. And we see a path forward where we will make money in devices, and we will continue to grow in that particular area. Now, we're not going to try and be all things to all people. We're not going to try and do across the consumer market, but the devices you will see come from us, and we've announced two of them so far, the Passport device and the Classic. These devices are built for enterprise and professional consumer users who care about security, care about productivity, and use their device primarily not to play Angry Birds, but but for collaboration and communications and have a heavy emphasis around security. So we will market towards that set of customers. It's not just the pure corporate customer. There's a lot of people who care about that are in this professional consumer category. Small law firms, small accounting firms, and so on. We will market towards both of those.
But as far as the mass market goes, is that something better left for the time when BlackBerry is firmly on its footing, or never in the future?
I think that's a consideration for the future. I think where we will look at it more short term will be in some of the emerging markets. Now, we launched a device earlier this year. It's called the Z3 device. And people wrote about it as it was a low-end device. Well, it was for BlackBerry, but it was targeted in emerging markets. And the user it was targeted at were sort of middle-income users in the emerging markets. And if you take places like Indonesia, that growing middle class is expanding rapidly. Those people are the future professional users, today and future professional users. So even our launch of the Z3 in the emerging markets, and when we say a low-end device, this is not a sub-$100 Android phone. This is a sub-$200 BlackBerry device. And so it was targeted at those users. That was still connected to our enterprise strategy, even though we were targeting consumers in that case.
Can you actually explain? So when you say you're not trying, by you I mean BlackBerry is not trying to be all things to all people, how do you reconcile that with the fact that you're targeting middle-class folks in emerging markets? How does that fit?
Because we see those as future enterprise users. I mean, we are in the developed markets, we clearly target the enterprise user and these professional consumers. And in the emerging markets, we want the BlackBerry brand to be familiar to the people who are going to be aspiring into those positions as those economies develop and grow. And so that's the rationale for targeting in those markets.
What are the short-term and long-term goals for this emerging markets focus?
So I think in some of these emerging markets, the BlackBerry brand is still a very strong brand. And not only through our devices, but also through our BlackBerry Messenger service, or BBM service. We have, you take some of these markets, we have among the over-the-top messaging players, we have 30 to 60%, depending on the market share for messaging. So our brand is very familiar to people. So we want to leverage that and build on that as these economies continue to develop.
Just to switch gears a little bit, one of the big themes here at the CTIA is the Internet of Things. What can you tell us about Project Ion and other ambitions that BlackBerry might have in that Internet of Things world?
So if you look at, first of all, if you look at the Internet of Things, there's, with no offense to anyone who may be around, there's a lot of hype. So our focus there is to really leverage real assets that BlackBerry has. So as we were talking, BlackBerry has always had the ability to manage devices. With our new BES 12, which launches in November, we will have the ability to also manage things. So whatever that might be, cars, diagnostic equipment in hospitals, and et cetera, machines in power stations and such. So we will be expanding BES's role to not just manage users and devices, but to manage things in the Internet of Things. So that's a great capability. We also have a global infrastructure. We operate an infrastructure that supports all the BlackBerry services that support our devices as well as our BlackBerry Messenger service. And so you look at that and you look at our capabilities for big data and analytics, which exist within that infrastructure. We have a lot of the components necessary to put together solutions. The focus you'll see from BlackBerry will be focused around Internet of Things as it relates to specific use cases. So you'll see things that are related to cars because our QNX embedded kernel is in tens of millions of cars already. So we have relationships with car companies and the OEMs who sell to those car companies. And so our ability to be able to do things in the connected car space are quite good at leveraging our infrastructure, our big data and analytics, and also leveraging the fact that we are the operating system that's embedded in these cars. And then similarly, we will pick other use cases in other industries, but it will be related to things we're familiar with. So like, say, for example, the insurance industry and financial services. We see some important use cases there. Healthcare also is another use case where we think that not only those assets, but our fundamental security foundation will be very important.
Can you just put a little more meat on the bones about this? How much of a revenue stream would you say this Internet of Things push is likely to generate for BlackBerry in the next say, 5 years?
So I think, I'd split it into, over the next couple of years, we don't see a lot of revenue coming from it. We think there'll be a lot of test cases, things people will be putting their toe in the water. And so we're not really counting as part of our transformation of the company of a lot of revenue coming from that, this year or next year. But as you get into that sort of 3-year to 6-year time frame, that's when we really think things will be perfected enough that you'll start to see a significant ramp in revenue potential. And then we think we'll be in a good position by then to be able to participate in that.
And how much of a sort of a portion of BlackBerry's business could this be?
I think, we have expectations that it could grow to be quite a substantial portion of our business, getting to the point where maybe it grows as much as a third or more of our overall software and services business. So we have high expectations for that longer term for it.
Again, thinking back about some of the challenges within trying to restructure BlackBerry, how do you get into Internet of Things and try to innovate and expand and grow, operating on an R&D budget compared to some of the big guys you're competing against whose R&D budget might be bigger than BlackBerry's revenue stream?
So first of all, we're focused. So we're not trying to do, as I said, we're not trying to do a lot of different things. We're trying to be very focused. And so because of that, and our R&D budget is quite substantial. So we focus that on the areas that we think make a difference as part of this transformation. The other thing we did was when we restructured the company, which we did through the first part of this year, we cut to the point where we knew that would give us resources still available to invest in these growth areas, or areas that had growth potential for the company. So we kind of planned that as part of the restructuring that we did as we transformed the company.
Okay, and I wanted to bring up one last theme that's also big, and you brought it up a little earlier, cybersecurity, security of data. Lots of conversations about that in Washington, which is where I work. How much does that come up in your conversations with CIOs of various companies? How much are folks bringing that up and asking about BlackBerry solutions on that side?
So BlackBerry has always been viewed by its customers as being a leader in security. And no one disputes that. Not even our competitors dispute that. Some of our competitors say security is not important. But that's because they don't have it. And if we didn't have it, we probably would say it wasn't important either. I was talking to some people the other day, and they said, security is a little like oxygen. You don't really notice you don't have it until you don't have it, and then it's too late. And so BlackBerry is used as a thought leader around security by the chief security officers of government organizations, departments, as well as our enterprise customers. And we have an ongoing dialogue around the security threats for enterprises, and as well as the security threats at a national and governmental level as well. And we will continue to do that. It's a very key part of it. Is the foundation. And when we think about security, just to give you kind of an idea, we don't think about security as some software we do. We think about it right from the very silicon that goes in our devices. So when a BlackBerry device lights up on a network, we know exactly it's that device. There's no question, right? And then it goes from there to the embedded kernel that's in our devices, to the operating system, to our BES servers sitting behind the firewall, to our global infrastructure that we operate. And when we think about all these levels, very few of the companies have the ability to think about it in that kind of depth. I sometimes say that we have the benefit of having been in business for 20 years. And we'd like to think we got everything right on security all the way through that 20 years. We didn't, of course. We made mistakes too. But we were able to re-engineer and react to those mistakes and fix things. Other companies can spend a lot of money in R&D, but you can't fast forward the movie of experience, right? So it takes real-life situations of dealing with security to really get the hardened security solutions that you need in order to be bulletproof. And that's where BlackBerry is. But that's hard for our competitors to just do by spending more money. It is, I pick on our friends from Samsung a little bit and say, this is the school of hard knocks. You have to learn through experience as well as spend the R&D dollars. We have the benefit of 20 years of that.
how do you go forward in security? I mean, you just described a very solid foundation that BlackBerry has. Is there something new coming on that side? What is the innovative angle that the company can bring on that now?
So security, you know, so we continue to innovate and invest in security all the time. It's a cornerstone of all of our R&D programs. And when we look at new solutions, when we look at new devices, we always think about what does it mean with regard to the focus on security. And so we continue, it's just part of the DNA at BlackBerry. You know, it's not an extra thing we do, it's there. There's a lot of things that we're innovating on. I'm not going to talk about them.
No, that's a bummer.
But we continue to innovate. I mean, the focus will move from, you know, people worried about securing the device. Well, that's fine, but you got to secure the applications, you got to secure the data, you got to secure where the data resides. A lot of enterprises have data sitting back in their data centers. That's really changed. Now they've got cloud services they depend on. How does the data get to the cloud service? Is it encrypted when it's there? You know, those kinds of things. What happens when employees leave the organization? Can they still access these cloud resources? You know, things like file share services and those kinds of things, or do you keep that within? And then another area that I think you'll see a lot of innovation, and certainly we are active in, is in the whole area of how you manage identity related to users and devices and so on. And because identity management is becoming much more complex for enterprises. BlackBerry actually is one of the largest identity management players in the world, but we've only ever used it for our own internal purposes of managing our services. We're now looking to leverage that and innovate that to be able to help our customers solve problems within their enterprises.
Well, thanks very much for talking a bit about the transformation that you're helping drive at BlackBerry. This has been John Sims with BlackBerry, Head of Global Enterprise Solutions. I hope you enjoy the rest of the CTIA.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alina.